Welcome back to the Adventures with Sarah P podcast. I am your host, Sarah P, a 19-year-old girl trying to figure out this whole adulting thing through life's adventures. And before we get into today's episode, I firstly want to say happy Valentine's Day. Well, you're listening to this, it is Valentine's Day, so if you celebrate, happy Valentine's Day. I'm kind of like not really a Valentine's Day celebrator because I don't know, I feel like it's just like a marketing tactic to get companies to get you to spend money. And so I will be spending my Valentine's Day going to class because I have class. I'm pretty busy from 11 a.m. to 6:15 p.m. And I'm not really going to want to do anything after that. So I'm probably going to read my book and enjoy a little night in and do some homework. But if you do celebrate Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day. I will say I'll probably wear like pink or red just to like be with everyone else and like not stand out. But I like wearing little bows in my hair. I like little self-care night, but I'm not one to decorate. But if you are, that's great. I love that for you. I can't get into it, and it's probably because I'm single. But that's not what today's episode is about. Today's episode is about boys. So I don't know why, but I'm really nervous to film this episode, and my friend Sophia convinced me to film it, so here we are. So I'll start with like a little dating background, I guess. It all started in 5th grade. I had my first boyfriend in 5th grade, and it lasted about 9 months, I think, and then he broke up with me on my birthday, my 11th birthday. And it was because I was too focused on the future. Like I was like planning our wedding or something, which I think is hilarious now because I don't even want a wedding. I kind of just want to elope and call it good. But we haven't met that person yet. So we're still waiting on the person, but I have the plan in my head. So I just find that funny that he broke up with me because I was thinking about our wedding in 5th grade, and now I'm here today and don't really want a wedding. So there was that. And then there was another boyfriend my senior year of high school, and that only lasted 2 months. And I will say he was a great human being, but the problem is he would like talk to like my parents or like my friends and be like, oh my gosh, like she's so cool. Well, and that's what I've been told. And so like he really would be like, wow, like she's amazing, but he never said that to me. So like I never got those affirmations to myself. Instead, I'll give you 2 stories, both things my friends and I joke about now. Story number 1 is it is homecoming, and I have like naturally wavy hair. And so I think, well, now it's more wavy. I used to straighten my hair in middle school, and so my hair had become like very straight, like pin straight without straightening it. And so at the time, like my hair like used to be naturally straight, and now I feel like it's more so wavy because I stopped using heat on it, and it's now back to its like natural roots, I guess you could say. But for homecoming, I decided to curl my hair. I really like how I look with curled hair, like especially with like freshly curled hair for like pageant or prom, homecoming, whatever. And so we're taking pictures, and I'm like having a conversation with like him and it's just the 2 of us. And he has, I'm pretty sure his intention was to be like, I like you how like you naturally look, like I like you like when you're not all dolled up. But that was just not the timing to pull that, because he goes, yeah, I mean, like, your makeup, or I like your hair better straight than curled. And then, like, in another part of a conversation, he was like, yeah, like, your makeup's just a lot. And I don't want to believe, and I don't believe he intended it to be, like, in a mean way. Like, I don't think that was his intention at all, but that's how it came to me. And I was like, huh? And didn't break up with him after that. Then story number 2 is it's finals, midterm week, some sort of exam situation, and I'm talking to this man about how I'm stressed because I have like a diving competition coming up, we have exams coming up, like I'm worried about college, like trying to get recruited. And this man goes, Sarah, it's not good to stress. And I told my mom about this, and we talk about it all the time. Like, anytime there's any little thing that I'm stressed over, that is her immediate comeback to me is, Sarah, stressing's not good for you. So I will say, when in doubt, out of that relationship, we got 2 funny stories that like my friends and I and my family can joke about now. But I broke up with him, and I just like, the relationship wasn't what I wanted. I felt like he was a little too clingy, and I just like, I also just didn't get that like I knew he liked me, but I didn't know because he never told me. And I feel like my love language is like positive affirmations, like words, and so I just wasn't getting that. And so anyway, here we are today. And I will say, I feel like I've only had 2 boyfriends because of my dad, and not because my dad is some scary man, although I have been told that by a couple boys. They like were like, yeah, your dad's a little intimidating. And to me, he's just this lovely little teddy bear. But my dad is definitely a girl's dad, and he has just treated me with such respect, and he's really showed me how a man should treat me, or a woman in general. And so I want to like share some of the things that like, or the reasons, I guess, like why I feel like I have such high standards, I guess you could say, or that like I'm not gonna like date someone just because I'm feeling lonely and like I need something to be filled. Like for me, my like what I'm looking for in a relationship is someone that's going to like treat me with respect and like be there when I like need them. I'll be there when they need them. Like we're both gonna like make each other better, and I haven't found that yet. And I also like am fine being by myself, and I don't need a person to like be by my side 24/7. Like I would much rather be alone in my room reading a book, watching a movie, than spending time with someone I don't like. And that's just something that I've had to learn like throughout life. And so back to like my dad, this man, the like number one thing that I can think of when I think of why I have such high standards is this man sat in the snow in Minnesota with me for an Olivia Rodrigo concert for songs that he knew. Obviously, I actually don't know, but I'm assuming Olivia Rodrigo is not his favorite artist of all time. And he sat in the snow because I wanted to be at the front of the barricade. Like I wanted to do things. And so I just think about that sometimes, and I'm like, if my boyfriend is not gonna sit in the snow with me for 6.5 hours to do something, then I don't really want it. And that's just something that like he has done. Like another example is when I'm at home, if we're at a pageant, diving competition, walking down the street, and I ask him to take a picture, this man has been trained, I will say, to take the world's best photos, and he will stop what he's doing just to make sure that I'm able to get my photos, which is so sweet. And just, I don't know, like it's just like, that's what I'm looking for, and I just haven't found it yet. And that's okay, because when the time is right, the right person will come along, and I just have to keep telling myself that, and I am pretty sure it's gonna happen, so it's fine. But he's just really nice to my friends, and he remembers their names. And I think I've just seen on TikTok and in life like some dads that don't remember their friends' names. Like I'll be friends with someone for like a couple years and their dad still doesn't know who I am. I've never met their dad. And obviously everyone's situation is different, but there's just something about having that in my life that really helped me, I guess, put into perspective like what I'm looking for, like what I want and how I want to be treated. So shout out to my dad. You're the best. Thank you. We've talked about, like, I've called him before because we talked about like how I just like, he was like, yeah, like growing up, like we just always assumed like boyfriends were gonna be like an issue, and that's never been the case. Like he's like talked about like how some of his friends or like people from work have like had like boyfriend or like relationship horror stories of like their kids, and my dad's like, yeah, we just haven't had that, so I guess thanks. But in response, I just tell him that like it's because of him. Like not in a bad way, but like he's the reason like I haven't had to experience that, just because he set the bar so high for me that like my standards will not be lowered. And I have some dating or like relationship non-negotiables that kind of go either way for like a partner or like a friend. And so I wanted to share some of these with you because I feel like also like with my dad, I've also set these for myself, and he's been able to kind of like show me them. But also like it's important to like set some non-negotiables, whether you think about them in your head or you write them down. And so just so you remember like what you're looking for, I think is super important, whether it's in a friend or a significant other. I have the first thing on here, good communicator / listener. I have learned communication is so important, whether it's been with an ex-boyfriend, with a friend, with my family. I've just learned that you need to communicate, even if you think it's something so small, that something so small can grow to be something so big. And if you haven't communicated it, no one's gonna know. Like no one can read your mind, no matter how hard you try to like hint at it or like just tell them. And that's something that I've learned, and that's something I'm still working on, is just being a good and open communicator, because I feel like it's super important. Because when you close yourself off, when you shut down, like that's not helping the situation. Even though you just like don't want to talk to anyone, you just want to like slam the door and go into your room, it's not doing anyone any favors. And so just being a good communicator is something that I'm looking for, and that's something that like I'm still working on myself. So good communicator, number one. Number two, has independent activities. I think it's super important to know who you are, and you can do this through independent activities. When someone asks me like, oh, like what are my hobbies? Reading is, well, okay. When someone asks me, it kind of depends on the situation, because number one, I say like social media, like I love my podcast, my YouTube channel, all that fun stuff, Instagram, TikTok. But then number two is either yoga, because I love to do yoga, whether I'm teaching it, whether I'm doing it. It's an independent activity. I don't need anyone to come with me. Like I'm good doing it on my own. Watching a YouTube video, going into a class, like that is my jam. Or reading. I love to read a good book in my little book chair that I just bought, which it's from Amazon, and it's like a foldable chair, and it fits perfectly in my apartment. I can just pop her up anywhere, and I can just sit and read my book, and it makes me so happy. So those are just some of the things that I like to do by myself. Going to the gym, walking on the treadmill, just walking around the block or like on the beach. Something I really love to do. That can be like with, like all of these can be with someone else, but there's something that I like to do by myself. Sometimes I'll bring my dad along or a friend, but most of the time, like this is something I like to do by myself. It is my activity, it's my hobby. I enjoy doing my independent things. Also, it's important to like enjoy things together with people, but those are just some things that I think is important, and I think it's a good quality to look for. If someone can spend time by themselves, that means that they like know who they are and what they like kind of want in life. Well, I don't know what I want in life, but I like to do things by myself, and I feel like I've learned a lot about myself, and so I'm able to make that skill like go into being a good communicator. And I feel like it's just something really important to look for. And if someone doesn't have like an independent hobby, like obviously that's not like a turn away, but if they do, that's something where I'm like, oh, like that's interesting, like good to know. Next, we have good manners. This is something I've seen a lot since like being in high school and college, is some people just don't say like thank you, or like, you know, have like good, well, not like etiquette, but like just like manners. Like you obviously don't have to be like, yes ma'am, no sir. Like I'm not looking for that. Like I'm just looking for someone, like when you sacrifice something, like you just say thank you. Like that goes a long way with me. I'm not sure why, but it does. Like when someone like holds the door open, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like little things like that just make me like really happy. And so that's something I look for. Again, with all of these, well, I guess I will say good communicator might be a turn away, but most of these are something that I'm like looking for. But if someone doesn't have it, it's not like a turn away. It's just something that I'm like keeping an open mind about. Like when I'm in a relationship, I kind of like think about these things and see if they're there. And not that like I'm looking to fix somebody, but if they don't have one of them, like willing to work with them to be like, oh, like thank you, and like overemphasizing it kind of, so like they start picking up on it. But I'm not trying to fix anybody. I'm just like, these are some things that I'm like keeping open like minds about, and just like things that like kind of attract me toward people. So next we have my next non-negotiable is emotionally mature. I think this is super important because not being emotionally mature, not being able to recognize your emotions is kind of a turn off for me. Like whether it's in a friend or in a relationship, like that's just not appealing to me. Like if you don't know how to like one, handle your emotions, listen to your emotions, like most of the time, not all the time, obviously everyone's different, but what I found is those people kind of attack you and like go towards like what you're confident about or what you're insecure about, and they just start attacking you because they don't know how to deal with their emotions through themselves. And that is such a turnoff for me. Like I need to I want to say like I need to work on that, but it's like I don't want to have to deal with someone else's problems. Like that's not, like I need to focus on myself in that instinct. And like I understand that you're struggling, but like if you're not willing to listen to yourself, like there's nothing really I can do to make the situation better. And so that's something I really look for is emotional maturity, because I want to surround myself around people that have that and like are mature enough to listen to their emotions. And so that is something I find very important. Next we have supportive. So this could be in anything, just like my goals. Like my goal is to work in social media. I'm not really sure with what yet. I just know that I love creating content, looking at the analytics and all that fun stuff. And so I want people that are going to support me in that journey, whether it's my friends, my family, my relationships. And so the people that aren't so supportive of that, or like make fun of that, or just, you know, talk negatively about it, I kind of distance myself from them just because I don't need that negative energy. If I want to do something, I'm going to put my mind to it and I'm going to do it. And I don't want to have in a close circle that negativity. Next, okay, so this goes for dating. I want my parents and close friends' approval. I feel like this is going to be pretty easy. I feel like my mom was just talking about how when she was getting her hair done, her hairdresser like asked my mom about like, oh, like, are you worried about Sarah bringing home any like boys you don't approve of? And my mom was like, no. She has such high standards. And I feel like with this, like this one's gonna come pretty easily, because I feel like the person that I like is gonna like my friends because we're gonna be very similar. And so I'm not too concerned about this one, but it is something where like if my parents have like, my mom is somehow always right about my friends. And so if she has like a gut feeling about somebody, like I'm gonna listen to her and I'm gonna be like, I'm okay, thank you. And so this one I feel like should come easily, but it's something I'm gonna remember because my close friends and my family are only wanting what's best for me. And I know this, like, I think I either read about this or like it was in a movie or something where one of the, like there was character A, and character A's boyfriend was cheating on her, and character A's friend tried to tell her, and she like was like, well, you're just jealous and like you're not like wanting what's best for me, like you're just trying to make me like upset. And in reality, like he was cheating on her. And so I think it's just important to like for me to remember that my friends only want what's best for me and my family only wants what's best for me. And so I'm going to listen to them on that. And while I've never had this situation before, and I hope I never do, but I will be listening to my parents. So that's kind of another non-negotiable that I have. So going into like setting high standards, I think it's important to remember that setting high standards doesn't mean seeking perfection, but rather creating a relationship that aligns with your values. I think that's super important because I have had people like tell me like your standards are way too high, like that's so unrealistic. And obviously it's not unrealistic if my dad can help me set those standards. So that's like comeback number one. Comeback number two is I'm not looking for someone to fill like a void or like just be there to support me. Like I feel like I can do that on my own. Like I'm more so looking for a person that's gonna make me a better person and that I'm also gonna make a better person. And so for that, like I just think that's really important to keep in mind is when you're setting high standards, I'm not looking for perfection. Like I'm obviously like looking for someone who has good manners, is like a good communicator, or is working on being a good communicator, working on themselves. Like that's something that I'm looking for. And so I'm obviously not looking for perfection, and I think that's super important to remember when talking about high standards just in general. But I feel like being able to set those high standards, you have to know your values, you have to know who you are as a person, because if you don't know who you are as a person, how are you going to look for whatever your values are in someone else? And so I think that's super important. Just spending time with yourself, journaling, talking to someone, kind of just figuring out those things. I feel like it's kind of a longer process and a not so fun process, but once you kind of get on the path, it's kind of easy to keep going down the road and just be able to pick up on things that you're like, oh yeah, like that's something that I didn't notice before that I really value. Next is establishing boundaries. This one, super important. Whether it's a friendship, a relationship, just having roommates, just being in a space with other people, I think it's super important to establish boundaries. And for me, this one was kind of difficult just because I don't really like conflict, and so I couldn't just like brush things under the rug. And so that's where I feel like I was lacking as a good communicator, is I was just kind of like letting these things build up until a point where it became too much for me to keep sweeping under the rug, and then I would just blow up. And so what I've kind of learned is, for me, I have to start either letting those little things go, like I'll write them out in my journal and like let all my anger out, or I need to bring them up. And so I've learned that I need to either speak up or just write it down in my journal. And so that's kind of how I've been able to work on establishing my boundaries and being able to communicate them. Next, I have self-respect. I think this one is super important because I feel like I have so much respect for myself because I know what I've been through in life, and I know like how I've gotten to where I am. And so being able to respect yourself is super important, because if you can't respect yourself, then someone else isn't going to respect you. I mean, they might, but more than likely they won't. They'll just keep walking all over you. And I've seen this with a lot of people. And so I think it's super important to really value yourself. And if you're not able to do that, just know we can get there. It just might take a little bit of time, because depending on where you're at, where I was at, where I feel like I was my lowest, it took me a while to get back up to be confident to where I am now. And so I think getting self-respect is a journey, and it's not the funnest journey, but it is something that's super important that I think we should value. And so getting there and being able to have that respect for yourself, other people are going to respect you. And so I feel like it's super important to have. Prioritizing emotional well-being. Another important thing to get to having high standards or setting high standards is emotionally. Personally, like I can let my emotions either make or break a day. And I'll use today as an example. In the past, we're gonna have a little glimmer moment. If you don't know what a glimmer moment is, my therapist and I call it where like you're able to like look back at the past and see how you'd react in a situation versus how you're reacting now, and you can see the change. So this morning, wake up, I have like kind of a sore throat. Also, I'm so sorry if my voice sounds weird. I woke up with a sore throat. So I wake up with a sore throat. I go to do my laundry, spill laundry detergent on myself. I'm like, oh, great. The light in the laundry room, not working. I'm like, I need to like clean my water bottles, because if I have a sore throat, like I don't want the germs like anywhere near me. So I go to clean my water bottles and I knock one over. Like a 40-ounce cup of water, just soapy water, poured on me and my pants. And so I'm like covered in soapy water. I got it all over the kitchen. I'm like, whatever. Like I'm just gonna get a towel, put on some music, and have a better day. In my past, I would have just started crying. Like I would have just been crying. I would have like come into a slump. I would have done absolutely nothing with today. I would have made it the most unproductive day ever. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes it's fine to have unproductive days. But I feel like I've grown in my emotional like well-being, my emotional maturity in that moment. I had my glimmer moment because I was like, I'm not letting this get me down. Also, those were like three things that like everything that I feel like comes in threes. So those were three things where I was like, okay, nothing more bad is gonna happen today. Like that was the worst, time to move on. And so I feel like just being able to like recognize those little things is super important. And so that's kind of what I mean by prioritizing your emotional well-being, is being able to for me, it was being able to be less emotional. It's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's super important to recognize where you're at emotionally and see if you want to continue to change in a different direction, or if you're happy with where you're at, just continuing to notice those little things. The next one is don't settle. I feel like this one's super important because I feel like there's a person out there for everyone. And so when it comes to this not settling just because it's like, it could be the right person but the wrong time. And so just like if they have all of these great things but there's one bad thing where you're like in your gut, like you're like, I don't know about this, maybe listen to your gut. Maybe it's just not the right time. Just don't settle for it, because I mean, obviously it depends on what it is. Like for me, if they're a Green Bay Packer fan, I'm not going to be like, oh, no, everything else about you's great, but that one thing, like, I don't know, my dad might disagree with me on that, but we'll see. We'll see when the time comes. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we find someone who's either a Chiefs or Minnesota Vikings fan, but you know, we're good with whatever. No matter what, I will not become a Minnesota Vikings fan. Don't you worry. So just like stuff like that. Like if someone's like, I feel like forcing you to change who you are also, or just like doesn't like you for what the things that you like that, don't settle. Like don't be like, well, like you're right, like I don't like how much I read, like I'm gonna start watching movies because like you like watching movies, or I'm gonna watch you play video games because you like no, like you can have the things that you like and they can have the things that they like. And I saw Haley Pham talk about how her boyfriend plays video games and she reads, and like I'm like, that's great, like you both have things that you like he's not forcing her to play the video games and she's not forcing him to read, like they're just doing their own thing in the same room. And like I feel like that's fine. Like I'm personally a fan of that. So just like being able to not settle, and if anyone is trying to make you change, like definitely take a step back and be like, how important are they in my life? Like why are they making me change? Like is it for the better? Like are they trying to help me become a better person? Or is it because like they're jealous of who I am and they're trying to make me be a worse person? I feel like that's also important. But that's kind of all I have for Adventures in Boys. I just want to say again, remember that setting high standards doesn't mean seeking perfection, but rather creating a relationship that aligns with your beliefs and values. I just want to like keep repeating that because I feel like the more I say it, the more I'm gonna feel like that's true. Like when people say those like things to me, like I don't think they're trying to be mean. I think they're trying to be helpful, but I think it's important to be like, I have high standards for a reason. Like these are the things that I'm wanting in a relationship, and I just know that person's gonna come along. And just remembering that we're all at different places in our lives, but I think remembering that and looking back at past relationships, whether it's friendships or I wanted to say intimate relationships. What are they called? I think, is that what they're called? I'm blanking. Yeah, sure, like relationships in any aspect. Just looking back at them, seeing the ones that went well, seeing the ones that didn't, and realizing what kind of went wrong and being able to fix that for the future in your future relationships, I think is super important. But I'm gonna be honest, if anyone ever again tells me like, well, I guess I can't say that. I was gonna say, if anyone ever again tells me that they like my hair better straight than curled, like I might punch them in the face, but that's not true because I know his intention was right, but like the timing of all times to tell me this, not at homecoming, first of all, but hopefully he's changed. I don't know. I don't follow him anymore, but I hope your life's good. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it was you were able to kind of get some takeaways from it, whether it's being able to set those standards for yourself, kind of set a list of some non-negotiables you have, or just an appreciation for my dad, because I don't tell him enough how much I appreciate him. So Dad, if you're listening, I really appreciate you. Thank you for all that you have done. And yeah, I look forward to coming home this summer so he can take some good Instagram photos. If you don't know, I'm trying to go to Italy, and we're like trying to go, so it's a 2-week study abroad and we get to go, like, I'm trying to go over with my parents a week early. So those, I'm just thinking about them. I'm like, I just know that man is gonna kill that week of just content creating. He's gonna eat it up. But anyway, I hope you have a good Valentine's Day, whether that looks like hanging out with your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, going to a movie by yourself or with whomever, having a little self-care night, going out to dinner, whatever you gotta do. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day. Just know if you need me, I'll be in class or reading my book, and my phone will probably be on Do Not Disturb, which is totally fine. But with that, I hope you were able to get some good takeaways. You were able to kind of reflect back on your past relationships, look for things in future relationships. And I hope this episode, if anything else, was entertaining. I hope you got to see me get a little nervous and a little pink when I was talking about my past relationships. But yeah, so yeah, I just I have to just patiently wait for this to go on the internet forever, but it's okay. I hope you were entertained or you had some good takeaways or both. But with that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.